Hello, NFL fans. Welcome to NFL Picks with Dave, and Merry Christmas! Today we're going to predict how NFL Week 16 will play out. Our first game of the week takes us to New Orleans, Louisiana, where the Saints take on the Minnesota Vikings on Christmas Day. Last week, the Vikings lost to the Chicago Bears with a score of 33-27. The Saints, meanwhile, lost to the Kansas City Chiefs with a score of 32-29. This pick is a tough one. Since the Saints are very hungry for an NFC South title, I'm picking them with a score of 27-17. Let's now move to Saturday's games. Our first Saturday game takes us to Detroit, Michigan, where the Lions take on the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay last week came back from a 17-0 deficit to defeat the Atlanta Falcons with a score of 31-27. This is the second time that the Falcons blew a halftime lead over Tom Brady. Since the Buccaneers are a stronger team, I'm picking them with a score of 38-27. Our next game is between the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals. San Francisco last week lost to the Dallas Cowboys with a score of 41-33. The Cardinals, meanwhile, defeated the Philadelphia Eagles with a score of 33-26. Their win officially eliminated the 49ers from the playoff contention. This pick is not easy. Since the 49ers are upset about missing the playoffs, I'm picking them with a score of 24-21 in a close, nail-biting game. Our final Saturday game takes us to Las Vegas, Nevada, where the Raiders take on the Miami Dolphins. The Raiders last week suffered an embarrassing loss to the Chargers with a score of 30-27. The Dolphins, meanwhile, defeated the New England Patriots with a score of 22-12. This pick is pretty easy. I'm picking the Dolphins with a score of 21-14. Now let's move on to Sunday's games. Our first Sunday game takes us to Baltimore, Maryland, where the Ravens take on the New York Giants. The Ravens last week destroyed the Jaguars with a score of 40-14. The Giants, meanwhile, lost to the Cleveland Browns with a score of 20-6. This pick is pretty easy. I'm picking the Ravens with a score of 38-24. Our next game is between the Atlanta Falcons and the Kansas City Chiefs. Atlanta last week lost to the Buccaneers, while the Chiefs defeated the New Orleans Saints to maintain their lead on the number 1 seed in the AFC. This pick is very easy. I'm picking the Chiefs with a score of 27-7. This pick is the lock of the week. Our next game is between the Indianapolis Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Indianapolis last week defeated the Houston Texans with a score of 27-20. The Steelers, meanwhile, lost to the Bengals with a score of 27-17 in an embarrassing game. This pick is a tough one. Since the Colts usually struggle in Pittsburgh, I'm picking the Steelers with a score of 31-28. My next picks are the Browns over the Jets, 34-24, the Bengals over the Texans, 20-17, Washington over the Panthers, 24-10, and the Bears over the Jaguars, 31-7. Now let's move on to the later games. Our first late afternoon game is between the Denver Broncos and the Chargers. Denver last week lost to the Bills with a score of 48-19, while the Chargers defeated the Vegas Raiders with a score of 30-27. Since the Chargers had more time off, I'm picking them with a score of 21-14. Our next pick takes us to Arlington, Texas, where the Cowboys host the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cowboys last week defeated the 49ers, while the Eagles lost to the Cardinals. Since the Cowboys are playing at home, I'm picking them with a score of 28-21. Our final late afternoon matchup is between the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. The Rams last week suffered an embarrassing loss to the Jets with a score of 23-20. The Seahawks, meanwhile, defeated Washington with a score of 20-15 to clinch a playoff spot. The winner of this game will pretty much take the NFC West title. This pick is a tough one. Since the Seahawks are hungry for a division title, I'm picking them with a score of 27-24 in a nail-biting game. Let's now move to the last two primetime games. Our first primetime game takes us to Green Bay, Wisconsin, where the NFC North champ, the Green Bay Packers, take on the Tennessee Titans. The Titans last week defeated the Detroit Lions, while the Packers defeated the Panthers with a score of 24-16. Even though the Titans had a better week than the Packers, I'm picking Green Bay with a score of 38-35. And now, the last pick of the week. It's the Bills taking on the Patriots. Buffalo last week torched the Broncos while the Patriots lost to the Miami Dolphins. With this loss, New England is now officially out of the playoffs for the first time in 12 years. Since Buffalo is aiming for a good playoff spot, I'm picking them with a score of 31-21. And that does it for today's episode. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest videos and posts I do. Also, follow me on Twitter at DavidNader2 and like this channel's Facebook page. Thanks again for watching, and remember to wear a mask, practice social distancing, and to stay home when you're sick. Thanks for staying safe, and hope you have a great Christmas.